What if I told you? The most dangerous wizard in Harry Potter wasn't Voldemort, because long before Tom Riddle ever whispered Avada Kedavra, there was another dark wizard, one who didn't just kill, but inspired, manipulated, controlled entire governments. His name, Grindelwald. So who was truly stronger, the man who split his soul into 7, or the one who convinced the world it was all for the greater good? In this video, we'll break it all down, from magical skill and raw power, to the battles they fought, the followers they led, and the legacies they left behind. And trust me, by the end, you'll see both of them in a very different light. So stay with me, because the answer, it's not as simple as you think. Every dark legend starts somewhere, and for both Voldemort and Grindelwald, their beginnings reveal everything about the monsters they'd become. Tom Riddle was born from a loveless union, literally conceived under the influence of a love potion. He entered the world unwanted, and it showed. Left to rot in a grey, lifeless orphanage, he never knew family, never knew warmth, just cold stares, silence, isolation. But even as a child, Tom was different. He could make things happen, terrifying things. He'd hurt other kids, make animals disappear, whisper to snakes, not out of curiosity, but control. Because in a world that never loved him, power was the only thing he understood. And that thirst, it never left. Now, Gellert Grindelwald's story couldn't be more different. Born into a powerful wizarding family in Europe, he had the bloodline, the brilliance, and the ambition to match. He wasn't feared as a boy. He was admired, charming, intelligent. He was the kind of person who could walk into a room and have everyone listening within seconds. But it wasn't just talent. Grindelwald had vision, and a dangerous one. He believed wizards were meant to rule, not out of hatred, but out of what he saw as necessity. The Muggle world was broken, and he was going to fix it, whether the world liked it or not. And when he met a young Albus Dumbledore, that vision caught fire. Two of the brightest minds of their time, dreaming of a new magical order, until tragedy tore them apart. While Voldemort's path was built on pain and rejection, Grindelwald's was born from belief and betrayal. And maybe that's the most dangerous kind of villain, the one who thinks he's saving the world. For all their differences, there's one thing no one could deny. Both of them were terrifyingly powerful. Tom Riddle was a prodigy. By the time he graduated Hogwarts, he had already mastered spells most adult wizards wouldn't dare attempt. He could manipulate minds, control beasts, even defy death. Not once, not twice, but 7 times. He split his soul into pieces, deliberately, created Horcruxes, and in doing so turned himself into something less than human and far harder to kill. His magic wasn't elegant, it was deadly. He didn't just cast spells, he weaponized them. Curses that couldn't be blocked, unforgivable spells used without hesitation, and when it came to dueling, he was ruthless, efficient. A single flick of his wand and the battle was over. But Grindelwald, he played an entirely different game. His magic was sophisticated, ancient. He didn't rely on brute force, he bent the rules of magic itself. He could cast spells without a wand, summon storms, pierce through magical defenses no one else could touch. And while Voldemort obsessed over domination, Grindelwald studied magic, deeply, dangerously. He sought out forgotten enchantments, hidden rituals, prophecies lost to time. And then there was the Elder Wand, the most powerful wand in existence. Grindelwald didn't just take it, he mastered it, not by killing, but by convincing the wand to serve him, because that was his greatest strength. Not just magical power, but control, over people, over ideas, over the very forces of magic. Where Voldemort's strength came from fear and violence, Grindelwald's came from knowledge, precision, and manipulation. So who was stronger? The one who turned death into a game, or the one who bent reality with a whisper? Power alone doesn't start wars, it's influence that does. And in this, both Voldemort and Grindelwald were masters, in completely different ways. Voldemort didn't lead with charisma, he didn't inspire, he terrified. His followers, the Death Eaters, weren't loyal. They were afraid of punishment, of torture, of death. He branded them like cattle, forced obedience through fear, and discarded anyone who failed him. To follow Voldemort was to surrender your soul, and if you hesitated, you were next. But Grindelwald, he didn't need to raise his voice. He offered something far more dangerous than fear: hope. He promised a better world, a new order where wizards wouldn't need to hide, where muggles wouldn't rule, where the strong would finally take their rightful place at the top, for the greater good. And people believed him, not just the weak or the desperate, but brilliant witches and wizards, respected minds, ministers, scholars. He didn't have Death Eaters, he had disciples. While Voldemort built an army of shadows, Grindelwald built a movement, and that made him far harder to stop. Because how do you kill an idea? Even decades after his fall, Grindelwald's ideology still lingered, dangerous, seductive. Meanwhile, Voldemort's reign? Feared, yes, but short-lived, fragile, dependent entirely on his own survival. So ask yourself this: who truly held more power? The tyrant who ruled through pain, or the visionary who had people dying to follow him? When wands are drawn, everything else falls away, and both Voldemort and Grindelwald knew exactly how to make a duel feel like the end of the world. Voldemort was a killer, cold, calculated, lethal. He didn't play with his victims. He ended them, fast, no hesitation, no wasted motion. Whether it was a rebel, a traitor, or a child, if you stood in his way, he'd strike without blinking. He dueled Dumbledore in the heart of the Ministry and nearly destroyed the building. He killed Snape without a flicker of regret, and his battles during the Second Wizarding War? Relentless, violent, efficient. But Grindelwald, his duels weren't just battles, they were spectacles. He didn't just fight to win, he fought to send a message. In 1945, he faced Albus Dumbledore in what would become the most legendary duel of the century. Two of the greatest wizards alive, bonded by a tragic past, clashing with the fate of the world on the line. And here's what most forget: Grindelwald held his ground against Dumbledore for hours, not through brute strength, but through precision, creativity, and mastery of the Elder Wand. Voldemort, on the other hand, faced that same opponent decades later and was outmatched in minutes. His spells were powerful, yes, but he underestimated love, loyalty, sacrifice, the very things that made his enemies stronger. Grindelwald understood those forces. He didn't ignore them. He used them. And while Voldemort's duels were about destruction, Grindelwald's were about control. He'd twist the battlefield itself to his advantage, manipulate the environment, the emotions, the momentum. Voldemort was a storm. Grindelwald was the one who changed the weather. Some wizards gain power, others become legends, but only a few become myths. And both Voldemort and Grindelwald terrified the world, just in very different ways. Voldemort's name alone was enough to silence a room. People didn't say it, not out of respect, out of terror. He became he who must not be named, a walking nightmare that haunted an entire generation. He ruled through shadows and screams, took over Hogwarts, took over the Ministry, tortured Muggle-borns in broad daylight. The wizarding world didn't just fear him, it froze in his presence. Even some of the bravest witches and wizards backed down when he appeared. But here's the thing, fear is loud, and fear fades. Grindelwald didn't need fear. He used something far more dangerous: belief. He wasn't hiding in forests or caves. He gave public speeches, held rallies, marched through city streets with a smile on his face, while the world slowly unraveled behind him. He didn't need people to tremble, he needed them to agree. And they did. His rise wasn't confined to Britain, it spread across continents. He infiltrated governments, flipped entire magical institutions. He convinced powerful people that the world should change, and that he was the one to lead it. Voldemort inspired silence, Grindelwald inspired movements, and while Voldemort's reign ended in a chaotic final battle, Grindelwald's ended with quiet confinement. But his ideology, it never really died, so who had more impact? The monster who made people whisper in fear, or the visionary who made them cheer for control? No matter how powerful a wizard becomes, eventually they all fall. Voldemort's downfall was brutal and poetic. He spent his life trying to escape death, but in doing so, he made himself hollow, inhuman. He trusted no one, loved nothing, and in the end, he was defeated by the very magic he never understood: sacrifice, loyalty, love. Harry didn't kill him with a curse. He broke the cycle, destroyed the Horcruxes, and let Voldemort's own spell rebound, just like it did all those years ago in Godric's Hollow. The Dark Lord died exactly how he lived, alone, feared, and utterly blind to everything that made others strong. Grindelwald's fall was quieter, but far more haunting. He was captured in 1945 after his legendary duel with Dumbledore, imprisoned in Nurmengard, a fortress he built for his enemies. Now it became his cage. But here's the twist: even in chains, Grindelwald never begged, never screamed, never recanted his beliefs, even when Voldemort visited him decades later. Searching for the Elder Wand, Grindelwald refused to help. He mocked him, faced death with dignity. Why? Because unlike Voldemort, Grindelwald believed in something bigger than himself. And that's what makes his legacy so terrifying. Voldemort was a monster, but Grindelwald was a martyr. To those still seduced by his vision, one was feared, the other remembered. So, who was truly the strongest? Voldemort had raw power, unmatched talent, a mastery of the dark arts that made even the bravest tremble. He was deadly, relentless, and obsessed with conquering death itself. But Grindelwald, he didn't just cast spells. He changed minds, he moved nations, and nearly reshaped the entire magical world without needing to kill a single person at first. Voldemort ruled through fear, Grindelwald through belief. One shattered souls to stay alive. The other built a movement that outlived him. If it came down to a duel, wand against wand, Voldemort might win. But if the battle was for hearts, minds, and the future, Grindelwald already did. So maybe the real question isn't who was stronger, but what kind of strength truly changes the world.